Okay, this video is regarding VenomFangX's claim that he made in one of his videos, which I may or may not be able to find because of the whatever's going on with him right now. But it's based on his claim regarding the Grand Canyon and how its sedimentary layers are evidence for worldwide flood. Now, I was originally going to make a much more complicated and much more expansive video, but honestly, I just don't have the time now that I've returned to college to change my career. Basically what he said is that the layering found in the Grand Canyon and basically every part of the Grand Canyon is evidence for worldwide flood. That somehow it was carved out as the floodwaters rushed away from land. Now, there's a couple problems with this. Number one, we have an example of what happens when a massive flood occurs. Northwestern United States, we have geological evidence for this. Floodwaters of that magnitude do not flow in sinuous pathways. They flow straight. Their momentum carries them straight from the higher elevations to lower elevations, eventually to the ocean. The Grand Canyon isn't straight. It's sinuous. It is carved by a river with oxbows and curves and turns. So the Grand Canyon shows evidence of being carved slowly, not quickly. The second one, and this is the true nail in the coffin for the Creationist flood model, and it's not unique to the Grand Canyon, but I'm going to use the Grand Canyon as an example, and that is limestone. Now, limestone cannot be deposited under a water flow model such as the one that the Vine Rhyme had on his channel. Laminated or stratigraphic sands can be produced by that kind of model, but not shales and not limestones and not mudstones, because the particle size is too fine. They remain suspended in the water column as the water flows over these regions. So limestone cannot deposit. Now, true, it says the Earth was covered for like 150 days. But in that 150 days, you would have to have formed between 330 and 510 meters of limestone in the Grand Canyon region. That is an enormous amount of limestone. That's between 2 feet of limestone deposited per day, or, almost 3 feet of limestone deposited per day. It doesn't sound like much per day, but limestone, when it forms, when it crystallizes, is an exothermic reaction. In other words, it produces heat. And because it produces heat, we can actually calculate how much heat the Grand Canyon region would have produced as this limestone formed. So I did the math, and now I'm taking the lower values here of a limestone deposit depth of about 330 meters. So I'm going with the lowest values to hedge on the Creationist flood model, so that I'm not just blowing it out of the water completely, so to speak. Excuse the pun. Okay, so there's approximately 330 meters of limestone deposits in the Grand Canyon region. To do these calculations, I used a 100 by 100 kilometer box, or area that includes the Grand Canyon itself. When you add the height and the volume, and the area together, what you get, and I've converted to centimeters here, is you get 3.3 times 10 to the 19th cubic centimeters of limestone. That's an enormous amount of limestone. I've also used the lower mass variant of limestone, which is known as calcite, versus the higher mass, which would be aragonite, again to hedge on the lower value, not the higher value. Also didn't deal with things like dolomite, which is also another form of limestone, or flow stones or anything like that, but just basic calcite. So we have that massive volume of 3.3 times 10 to the 19th cubic centimeters. And we can multiply that by 2.71 grams per cubic centimeter for calcite. And we get the value of about, it's 8.943 times 10 to the 19th grams, but let's just say it's about 9 times 10 to the 19th grams. So it's an enormous mass of limestone there. Now when this forms, it produces, like I said, heat. It produces heat at 11,290 joules per gram. Okay, so understand, we're talking joules here. It's a lot of heat energy in that. So from that, we add the total mass, about 9 times 10 to the 19th, times the amount of heat energy produced, 11,290 joules per gram, and we get a figure of 1.01 times 10 to the 24th joules of heat is produced in the crystallization of limestone. That's equivalent to 2.4 times 10 to the 23rd calories. Or, if you want to talk food calories, that's 2.4 times 10 to the 20th food calories. You can figure out how many hamburgers that is on your own. And as you might be able to tell, I like hamburgers. Okay. So we continue on with this. That is enough heat. It's hard to even explain this, I mean, to really make it understandable. But this amount of energy is greater than 16 billion times the energy released by the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in Japan in World War II. 16 billion times. I did the math on this to make sure of it. That's a lot. Just to give you an idea, that's enough heat energy that, when released, would vaporize 560,000 cubic miles of ocean waters. Now, the Earth has a lot of water. Currently today, the value I just gave you is about 1% of the total ocean water today. So there'd still be a lot of water left on the Earth. But the Grand Canyon region would have been so hot it would have boiled it off in that region. If you deal with all the limestone that's been deposited on the planet today, you would boil all the water off the planet and then superheat the atmosphere to several thousand degrees Celsius. It's not viable. The only way this heat can be released without affecting the planet and sterilizing it is over a long period of time. So, sorry, VenomFangX. Sean, the Grand Canyon disproves the worldwide flood. The Grand Canyon and the limestone deposits around the planet prove that the planet is old. Because otherwise they'd still be radiating enormous amounts of heat. Matter of fact, they'd have been so hot that the limestone in them would have decomposed into calcium oxides, and it just would not be a pretty thing. It wouldn't happen. So that's my little shot on the Grand Canyon as a model for the worldwide flood that is always brought up. It can't be, simply